I was interested in talking about the idea of town and country because this last year, in 2009, it was the first year, I think, in history that more people in the globe lived in cities than in the countryside. More than 50% of us now live in 3% of the land, which just seems extraordinary. Conclusive proof, I think, if anyone needed, that Aristotle was right when he said we were political animals. He doesn't mean that we're obsessed with exit polls. He means that we live in a polis, a city-state. We have to live with other people. Why do you think we all keep clambering into cities? It looks like, I think it's very tempting for us to believe there's a kind of construct, a media construct, I think, that the countryside is desirable. Oh, the lovely countryside, the life of a, we could live in a nice converted rectory. That's what it looks like in all the supplements of the magazines, and that looks so lovely. And the city, on the other end, is full of horrible inner city youths who happy slap and mug each other, and it's all terrible. And then the rest of us kind of live in the middle, in the suburbs, wondering how we ended up here and wishing we could avoid the inner city and head towards the country. And actually, it's kind of a lie. If we all hated the city that much, we don't have to live there. I know that many of us work in them, but also many of us don't have to work in them, but we elect to. There's a reason why schools and post offices and pubs in the countryside are closing down. It's because people don't live there very much, and yet we still present ourselves with this kind of fetishist idea of what the countryside should be. Later this year, I make a radio documentary for Radio 4 about urban chicken keeping, which turns out to be a thing. Guess what it's called? Attila the Hen. I didn't name it. And a couple of years ago, I interviewed a boy who kept bees on the roof in Hackney. He was quite strange, I'm not going to lie. But not as strange as I was, because he was very interested in bugs, and I'm very afraid of bugs. And I confessed I was afraid of bugs, and he told me that was absurd on live radio. And I pointed out I wasn't just afraid of bugs, I was afraid of things that look a bit like bugs, like, for example, vine tomatoes, which can look a bit like spiders from a distance. And yeah, it's like, you don't know absurd sunshine, you're very young. Let me explain. So I think we bring this is a literal rus in urbe, right? We're bringing the countryside into the city because it seems to us, I'm not sure, because it seems to us that the countryside is so perfect, so fetishized, so lovely that we have to have it in the city. Or is it the final up yours to the countryside from the city? Are we saying, see your countryside, we've got our back garden. I don't need your help, and we don't need your stupid crops. We've got 3 chickens. We've got an urban pig. I don't know which it is. But easily the crossest person in the history of all time, I think, is Juvenal. And Juvenal is furious about the city. And he writes an entire satire about his friend Ambricius, who's leaving Rome. And of course he's leaving Rome. Everything that Juvenal lists are things that you would hear as complaints from any city dweller today. It's overcrowded, it's noisy, there's too much traffic, it's too dangerous at night, there are too many immigrants. Juvenal is an extremely racist man, I'm not going to lie to you. The women are terrible, the money is impossible, you can't get a proper job, do you know why? The immigrants have got them all. It sounds exactly like the BNP had written it, only with wit, grace and joy in their hearts, which I know we all find literally and rightly impossible to imagine. But at the end of the satire, and this is why Juvenal is great, his friend says, well, you should move too, because it's terrible in Rome, isn't it? And you'd have so much money if you left Rome, because what you spend renting a tiny attic garret, you could have a whole place where I'm going to, it'll be brilliant. And Juvenal does what every single city dweller, without hesitation, would do. He goes, leave Rome or you're out of your mind. It's so boring where you are. Oh, God. And that, I think, is the great city dweller's paradox, that we have to bitch about it, but we would never imagine living anywhere else, apart from another city. I think we might just about leave London for New York or Paris. That's pretty much as far as we would go. And so it occurred to me when I was writing it that actually we should kind of give the city a little bit of a break. We kind of like them, or we wouldn't all keep living in them. And maybe if we stopped trying to pretend that we're going to leave in a minute and go to the country, we might actually improve the things about the city that we don't like. The overcrowding on transport, for example, would be a good case in point. We could all stop going, we'll be off in a minute, bye, 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 and then just living with it, we could improve it. I know, imagine.